Country Life on Midlands 103. Brought to you by W. Orshaw, Burlington Business Park, Tullamore. Supplier of New Holland's tractors in the Midlands. worshaw.ie.
Now, good evening and welcome to Country Life here on Midlands 103. MJ Clery with you until 8 p.m. this evening, bringing you all of the news from Lee Shoffley, Westmeath and further afield from the worlds of agriculture, food and agri-business. As always, thank you all for joining me here this evening, and we will go through everything that is happening in the world of farming over the course of the next hour. We're going to chat about grass growth in a moment with Martin Merrick from the Irish Farmers Journal, as we are on the cusp of some very good weather. That and how to apply for a TAMS grant for cattle handling facilities. All of that in just a moment. Also this evening, some potentially positive news for tillage farmers. God knows tillage farmers need it. Teagasc research is showing that certain varieties of oats could contain more protein than an egg-based breakfast. So as the world continues with its huge appetite for protein, this could potentially be a big win for tillage farmers. More on this later. Ewan Mullins from Teagasc will join me. I mentioned sunshine this weekend, and with that comes an increased risk for you and your health if you don't do things properly. So we have a lady from the HSE later, Anne-Marie Lawler, with the do's and don'ts of farming in the sunshine. That's in association with Board B Quality Assurance. So the Quality Assurance auditors are going to have a pamphlet with them over the next couple of months. So if you're getting your QA audit, the auditor is going to have this pamphlet, going to give it to you, and that's what we're going to go through with Anne-Marie. As we said, the do's and don'ts of working in hot sunshine, or indeed, look, working outside over the summer months. As we know, farmers are more proposed to the weather than most workers as a result of that. So more on that later. Finally, and towards the end of the hour, Pat O'Brien from the ICMSA chats about cash flow on farms and also has a word on the Fertiliser Action Plan. It will see support for farmers, but unfortunately on a very small scale, it seems. More on that towards the end of the hour. Now, as I said at the outset, we have Mayo man Martin Merrick on the line. Martin, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
More than happy to, MJ.
Martin, we're going to talk about grass growth and we're going to talk about TAMS grants. Let's go with the grass growth first. You had an article online on the Irish Farmers Journal app, and it was speaking about the poor growing conditions over the course of the last couple of months. I'd be honest with you, Martin, I thought I'd see more about grass growth over the last period of time, and yours was one of the few articles I actually saw on it. I thought it went a little bit under the radar because it was exceptionally poor.
Yeah, I kind of felt that it was quite a poor spring so far. We never really peaked, MJ, compared to what we would in normal years, where you'd see growth of 80 to 100 kg of dry matter hectare. We just haven't seen those figures, and it's a combination of a lot of things. Number one, it was an exceptionally cold spring in my eyes. Soil temperatures were very cool up until, we say, last week. We're seeing soil temperatures of 9 or 10 degrees. That's what you'd expect in March and not in the middle of May. As well as that, then, over your side of the country, you would have seen the last couple of weeks there's a kind of a need for rainfall, where over our side, we've the opposite effect, that, we have too much rain. So all that was kind of compounded into this issue. As well as that, the late turnout of cattle right across the country led to some very heavy covers, and they're very slow to bounce back. So what a lot of farmers are saying to me at the minute, MJ, is anything that has the cover grass on it, and even silage ground including that, is doing pretty okay. But once it's grazed off, it's been very, very slow to come back.
Yeah, I think that is exactly the issue. And look, we do see silage has been cut over the past maybe week or 10 days. We are seeing, especially dairy farmers now, not grazing grass in the springtime any longer and going for that early cut. I suppose it's too risky, really, Martin, because we just don't know how these springs are going to play out. Look, last year was that exceptional year, but on another year, you could be looking for that early grass, that early silage, that quality, and then you're going out and you're mowing not more than heavy toppings, really.
Yeah, talking to contractors as well, again, across the country, silage has been pushed back by a week or 10 days right across the board. And even at that, MJ, really, it is a lighter cover of grass on it. And the majority of them wouldn't have been grazed, but it's just been quite a poor spring so far for growth, and even the start of the summer. Like, we should have peaked in grass growth. But I'm hopeful now in the next week or so, with your side of the country having the moisture, and us hopefully drying out a little bit, that it would really rock it there. And there's a lot of farmers. I've been talking to a farmer in Cork today that's feeding silage at the minute, just because they're so tight on grass. So I'd say we will see the pendulum swing in favour that grass growth will take off, and it'll be a case of controlling grass and mowing out a bit of surplus and such in the next week or 10 days, hopefully.
Yeah, that's what we'll be looking forward to. I just have Med-Éireann app open in front of me, and it's changing by the hour, by the half day anyway, because earlier in the week, the later days of this week was given as wet. I think we had today, tomorrow and Friday as down wet days. That changed. Now they're coming up as cloudy, and we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Sunday 22 degrees, Monday 26 degrees, and Tuesday 24 degrees, and Monday at 26 degrees if it stays. We're talking about a real hot day there.
Yeah, it'll be very much welcome. Look, there's always that bit of caution that you have to take when it comes to working in those hot weather conditions as well. Quite rightly, you've someone on later talking about it, but just stock as well, MJ, and it's very important that we say water troughs are cleaned out and that there's ample water there to stock. But as well, when we're seeing this real spike in growth, we need to be careful about nitrate poison as well. So I've a piece there in the beef management notes, just that we say there could be fertiliser out the last week or 10 days that wasn't doing much, and that gets washed in now in the next day or two, and we see this spike in growth, and it can just cause that nitrate poison. There's very little you can do. The first sign usually is a dead animal. So it's more about kind of management and balancing that you're not letting animals in hungry into these paddocks that might be prone to it. If there's clover, clover loves that warm soil. So in the next couple of days, we should see a good uplift in clover growth as well. Just being cautious with that. Maybe balancing it that you're, grazing a lush paddock for dairy farmers during the day, or maybe grazing some stemmy stuff at night. Then that kind of balance there, MJ, should work fairly well.
Yeah, good advice, Martin. And an interesting piece you had last week on, obviously TAMS is one of your areas of expertise on the newspaper, and you write about it regularly, and we spoke about all the different areas over the past weeks and months. But we're looking at cattle handling facilities this evening. This is an interesting one, Martin, because lots of farmers have spent money on sheds and the surrounds, but maybe the crush is old, has been there for a long time, is doing its job maybe barely, but it's something that they could probably do with putting a little bit of funding into, and are wondering how they go about it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, MJ, and especially when you're talking about AI technicians and vets coming out. When you have people working on your farm, I think it's important that the facilities there. We're getting it hard enough to get vets as we are, and I think the least that we can do is have the proper facilities there for them, as well as yourself and any of your family that might be helping you out in the farm. It's very, very important that when you're handling cattle, that you have the correct facilities there. And I think as well, if you do have the facilities there, MJ, it will kind of lead to more preventative action, in that you might, do a bit more vaccination or foot bathing or something like that, that you're not putting things on the long finger. So look, the one thing about it I'd say is, with TAMS, with all its caveats and such, the Farm Safety Capital Investment Scheme, which covers all the animal handling, be it mobile or permanent, it's still there. There's a 60% grant rate there for all farmers. So it's not just for young farmers or women farmers or organic farmers. It's available for all farmers. And as well as that, we've seen ranking and selection come into place for all the sub-schemes within TAMS. And most of those have been slashed, when the approval rates have been slashed. Some of them are only seeing 70% with your less equipment or your solar. That's been cut down to 10%. But farm safety is still seen as a priority by the government and by the Department of Agriculture. So there is still 100% of eligible applications being approved there for TAMS. So if you do put in an eligible application for a crush or handling unit of some sort, it will be approved.
The crush or the handling facility then, Martin, because it's not a structure like a shed, do you need planning permission for it?
The vast majority of cases, MJ, it will be a letter of exemption rather than plan permission, especially if it is on an outblock. It'll more than likely be a letter of exemption. Look, there's a whole host of different things, say proximity to a public road or proximity to a dwelling house and that you have to go through first. But if it is going to be a permanent structure, you either need the letter of exemption or you need the plan permission in your hand before you actually apply for it. Mobile handling facilities, be it for sheep or cattle, so that's your mobile crushes or pens or whatever it might be, they're fine. You do not need your plan permission for those because they are not a fixed item. But for anything that is permanent, even if it doesn't have a concrete floor or concrete walls in it, if it is concrete into the ground, it's seen as permanent and it will need that letter of exemption or that plan permission. The difference between the letter of exemption and plan permission is, well, a letter of exemption, if you qualify for it, no one can actually object to it. With a plan permission, it goes up online then and people can object if they so wish.
With these facilities then, Martin, is there a limit? Like how big can you go? You know, when we see some of these very fancy, they're semicircular handling facilities and they run into electronic gates, and we have a big facility down at the end then for moving cattle from A to B, and obviously the cost goes up and up. Is it limited to your herd size, or how does that work, the mechanics of it?
It would have been in the past, MJ, but I haven't heard that being said now in this current tranche. I think the cost as it is enough of a limiting factor to farmers that they're only going to build exactly what they need. But as far as I know, MJ, no, there is no limit to what the size that a farmer can do. It was based on a metre square basis before on your livestock units, but to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything in the terms and conditions. I stand to be corrected on it though.
Yeah, I would be guessing, Martin, as you go around, you have seen with your travels with the Farmer's Journal, you've probably seen some fantastic facilities in your time. I remember I saw one myself, one of those semicircular ones based on the Temple Grandin design, where cattle, they don't even know it, and they have their heads caught in the chute gate. It's they're very, very impressive. There's some great designs out there.
Yeah, and in Newford there a couple of weeks ago, they had their open day, and I done a feature on it. Really, really impressive handling facilities there as well. As you said, that semicircular forcing pen that's really safe. But they also had a calf crush there, which is something that's new and novel. They obviously do their vaccination and such through it. And I thought for, say, suckler farmers that are handling big numbers of younger calves, or even dairy beef farmers that could have, 100 or 150 calves, putting them through an adult cattle crush really probably isn't the best. And just this very simple calf crush it was based off something simple seen in a veal unit, and it worked really well then for them calves. So it could be something that a farmer would incorporate into a new handling facility if they were doing it.
It was just smaller, Martin, was it? And the bars closer together, They couldn't turn it. Was that the idea?
Yeah, it was just 600 millimetres wide, so 2 foot wide. It wasn't very high. It would be, say, maybe 3 foot high then, it was very easy for you to reach over. There wasn't a platform needed or anything like you would see in an adult cattle crush. Look, it's limited to maybe working calves up to 3 months of age or that, but anyone that's ever been in a crush of calves at 3 months old and gotten kicks in the shins and such, it's not a nice feeling. So I just thought it was a really impressive thing. So anyone that's interested there can check it out on the Farmers Journal website there. It's available. The
steel toe cap boots are a must with the calves under 3 months, Martin. I think you learned that after your first time in a crush with them with the Wellingtons on. Martin, many thanks for chatting to me this evening on a number of different areas there. We'll speak to you again on the programme.
Thanks very much, MJ.
Martin Merrick there from the Farmers Journal, and growth rates are on the way up finally. 20th of May we would expect them to be. We expected them many weeks ago at this stage, but that weather at the moment is given very, very warm over the weekend, and I can't speak for all the areas of the Midlands, but I know with ourselves got lots of rain over the last few days, so that heat is what we are looking for now. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about porridge. You might eat it in the morning and you mightn't think much about it, but certain varieties have more protein than others, and this is something Teagasc have looked into in great detail, and they are arguing, well, not arguing, but they're saying that it is possible that your bowl of porridge might have more protein than an egg-based breakfast. But what will this mean for tillage farmers? It actually could mean a lot, could mean a windfall if this is proven to be correct, and if we go on and market it in the right way. The man with the news on this is Ewan Mullins. He's going to join me in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw, family owned and serving the Midlands since 1982, we're Ireland's largest independent agri-dealer, specialising in New Holland tractors and parts. With over 40 years' experience, we provide top-quality sales, service and support. Visit W.R. Shaw in Tullamore and Carlow or online at wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Now, moving on to tillage for the next few moments here on the programme. We have Ewan Mullins from Teagasc on the line. Ewan, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
I'm very happy to be here, MJ.
We're going to get into protein-dense oats in a moment, Ewan, but in advance of that, tillage in general. Look, we know tillage farmers up and down the country for the last number of years, couple of years anyway, are having a very tough time of it. And this year, 2026, has started off challenging for most sectors of agriculture. How are tillage farmers faring out in relation to crops at the moment, Ewan? How would you say they are?
So we've had the challenges have continued into 2026. Obviously, with the wet and the cooler spring, it did cause challenges and problems for farmers who were looking to put fertiliser out. The first split on the winter barley might have got a bit delayed for some folks, and that just puts pressure on in terms of the other crops getting spring barley in on time. Now, a lot of tillage farmers work through it, as they always do. I mean, the amount of resilience the sector shows is just unending. So we would hope now we've a warmer patch scheduled for next week. The winter crops, beans are looking very good. So we would hope the warm patch next week will start to bring the crops on a bit. Winter barley that got their fertilisers are looking very good. So look, as always with the tillage crop, you know, you do your best, you try and get the crops in on time, you manage them carefully, and then you hope for the best weather conditions.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to that heat, and we'll believe it when we see it, because that weather forecast is very, very, very up and down at the moment. Now, what we're speaking about, for the next few moments, is oats, and I'm going to start off by reading the first line of your press release. Your morning bowl of porridge could pack more protein than an egg-based breakfast, and it all comes down to the type of oats you choose. So this is a very interesting area of study you've been doing. Can you give us a little bit of background on it, please?
Sure, it is very exciting. So at the moment we would typically grow one of two varieties of oats. Husky and Isabel are the main varieties. And what this study looked at, colleagues Daniela Freitas, her PhD student Nefeli and Atakar here from Oak Park, looked at a combination of agronomy, so how the crops grow, how oats grows, and then also the nutritional profile. So rather than looking just at two or three varieties, they expanded it out to look at over 100 varieties. And what they found was very significant. So they found a very broad nutritional difference in profiling across those varieties. So what does that mean? The protein ranged from roughly about 11% up to 22%, depending on the variety. And that all-important cholesterol lowering beta-glucan range from roughly 2.8% up to even 6.8%. So this is very significant, because what it means is that we grow our varieties at the moment primarily for volume, maximising yield, but what we've been focusing on in Teagasc for many years now is trying to get the added value potential out of our crops that we already grow very well. And what this shows is that there is potential in a broader collection of varieties to deliver that added value potential for food processors.
Yeah, and there is, as we say, the potential here is huge. Sean Malloy, CEO of Tirlán, was on a couple of weeks ago, and he was speaking about investment they've made in relation to protein facilities and getting more to market. And look, this is exactly it. There's a huge global appetite for protein now, especially among that, would we say, Gen Z demographic, the kind of 18, 19 through to maybe 30, the gym goers. They're turning away from alcohol and they're going to the gym, they're going to saunas and cold plunges and whatnot. But all of this is on the back of a high protein diet. So here we have the potential now to supply that from an Irish grain. This, it could be massive.
No, it is. And I mean, the potential is there. Now, there's a lot more we have to travel on this road. But really, as you said, you nailed it. It's these health-focused claims that are being made. Consumers and society are more in tune with health benefits of food, and they're inquiring as to know what can this food product give me. And in addition to better health, we know oats has one of the lowest carbon footprints in our sector. So it ticks all the boxes. The key thing going forward for us now is to narrow down the number of varieties down to those that are more resilient and are more stable under our conditions, because the protein levels we're getting, or the colleagues got in this study, we need to expand that out across multiple seasons, multiple trial sites, so that the processors, whoever they are, the food processors, have confidence in the consistency of supply that's coming through. And ultimately for the farmer, that has to deliver added value premium for the farmers who were growing the material in the first place.
When we are looking at this study, then are we halfway through it, a third of the way through it? When do you expect, I suppose, results in relation to it, findings?
Well, I'd say what we do is we'll always disseminate the results. So we'll have an open day in 2027. So we'll have a special element on this again. And we showed some of the earlier collections at the open day last year. In terms of the journey of where we're going with this, we would hope that we would have selected varieties. And one of the challenges, some of these varieties may not be adapted to Irish conditions. So they need to go into a breeding program to ideally deliver elite lines. So like in terms of years, we're a bit away. We're maybe 5+ years away. But the key thing is that the potential is there. There is a broad collection across oats. And it's not just oats. We see it in faba bean as well and other pulses. So overall, by connecting nutritional profiling with crop agronomy, we're actually starting to see avenues that we can exploit into the future. And look, we would hope, we'd love if we could get results out quicker. That's what we have to do. But bit by bit, and we need to be able to stand over the science, and that unfortunately just takes a little bit of time.
Well, it's like breeding in general. Even if you're trying to breed in quality into your herd, it doesn't happen overnight either. It takes a few years. And, it's the same concept. You mentioned we're good at growing oats here in Ireland. Our climate is suitable to it. Where else? What other countries are good? Or have we a USP in relation to it?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, you go back 100 years, we had over 300,000 hectares of oats in Ireland.
Wow.
Ireland is a perfect climate for growing oats. Now back then and even before that, there was even more, and that's because oats was the primary biofuel crop for horsepower across the country. So everybody was growing a patch of oats. So we know they'll grow very well here. Outside of Ireland, areas of Scandinavia, obviously areas in the UK are all very good. And this work in the NutriOats product, or NutriOats project, the precursor project to that was called Oats Frontiers, which is basically funded out of Europe by the European Commission, looking at ways to diversify oat production across the western seaboard in Europe. So that's Scandinavia, northern France, the Benelux, into UK and Ireland, and even Iceland. And without that funding from Europe, without that funding from the Commission, this project and these results would never have materialised.
100 years ago, you said 300,000 hectares of oats and not a tractor in sight. There was some work being done back then, wasn't there?
Well, there was, and I mean, you look at the size of the tillage sector now, we're in and around that, a little bit more than that, to be fair, but, roughly the equivalent of the tillage sector over 100 years ago was all oats in the country. So it just shows you that it can be done, but to be fair, if we head down the route of expanding oat production, which would be great because there's a target to expand the tillage sector, there has to be a market for it. There has to be a pull from food processors, and there has to be demand from society for that. And we think this ticks the box, one of those boxes that society wants from their food sources.
Yeah, I would be thinking it does as well. Very exciting studies there going on in Teagasc, and we will speak to you again on the programme. Many thanks.
All the best, MJ. Thank you.
Ewan Mullen there from Teagasc, and NutriOats is what that's called. And just imagine in a couple of years' time if you could possibly even go down the route of PGI status for Irish high-protein oats, and we would become synonymous then with a high-protein oat here in Ireland. And the people who are looking for this huge amount of protein in their diet, these younger gym, I'm not going to say young, there's older people as well, but gym goers, people who are into health and fitness, this is a real push at the moment. You'll see it across all of the food companies. Glenisk have a cottage cheese now, and you can see in the front of it 35 to 40 grams of protein on it. You'll see protein written on bars in shops. You'll just see it across the board. And of course, in farming, beef farming especially, we are producing some of the best high protein foods you can get your hands on. Steak cannot be beaten. Now, chicken fillets are up there as well with it, and obviously dairy products as well. Then we're talking about protein powder coming from the dairy industry. So all of this should lead back into more demand for our produce and indeed higher prices. That's where it should be. Obviously not occurring at the moment in certain areas of agriculture, but that's where the market is at the moment. It's looking for high protein products, and we produce them here in spades in Irish agriculture. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about taking care of your skin safety for the summer months, especially this weekend coming. Anne-Marie Lawler, she's a Health Promotion Officer with the HSE. She's going to tell us what we need to do and not do after the break. Stay tuned.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
Brought to you by W.R. Shaw, where New Holland isn't just a brand, it's our passion. For over 40 years, we've been Ireland's trusted name for New Holland tractors, parts and farm machinery. Whether you need new, used or ex-hire tractors, we've got you covered. wrshaw.ie.
And you're very welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Now, skin safety is what we're speaking about for the next few minutes here on the programme. We have Anne-Marie Lawler. She's joining us from the HSE from County Kilkenny. Anne-Marie, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
You're welcome. It's nice to be on.
You're more than welcome, Anne-Marie. So it is in front of me here. It says Board BIA partners with the HSE to support farmers' skin safety this summer. Tell us a little bit what is occurring, please.
Well, this is a really exciting opportunity for the HSE to get, some really life-saving information out to farmers. And we're doing that by this partnership where we have about 870 farm visits every week over the summer months by Board BIA auditors. But they're also going to deliver leaflets to farmers. And I suppose it's so important because farmers are identified as a group at particularly high risk of skin cancer, due to their outdoor work and the nature of their job. And skin cancer is largely preventable, and it is the most common cancer in Ireland with nearly 12,000 cases each year. So it's just such a valuable partnership to be able to get the information straight into the hands of farmers.
12,000 cases each year, Anne-Marie. That is a lot. I'm presuming the majority of those are people who work outdoors, be it farmers or maybe people in construction and whatnot.
Yeah, well, what we do know is if you're an outdoor worker, and we know our farmers, our construction workers, you're getting and you're exposed to 2 to 3 times more UV radiation from the sun than someone that works indoors. And, we also have statistics where we know that people that die from skin cancer, we have, 1 in every 4 of them is an outdoor worker. So we know they're a particularly high risk group due to the nature of their work. But the good news is skin cancer is very preventable, and there's lots of steps you can take to, prevent skin cancer. And the other good news is that if you find a skin cancer early, it's very treatable. I mean, the 5-year survival rate for a skin cancer that's found and picked up at stage 1 is almost 100%. So it really is a good news, but it just needs vigilance, and it needs that information to get into the hands of the people that really need it most.
Yeah, well, let's talk about a few of the steps, because our listeners here, farmers, will be saying, OK, look, it's hot this weekend, but I have a busy schedule of AI still going on, and I have silage coming up, and you name it, I'm going to be outside from morning until evening, albeit maybe in a tractor, in and out, and different. I won't be in the direct sunshine, but I'm still going to be there. I can't avoid it. So how can I help myself?
Well, I suppose the first thing is that we have a misconception here in Ireland that you need sun and brightness and heat to get damage from the sun. But actually, the sun emits UV radiation, which is not. There's 3 types. There's got heat, light, and UV radiation. So I took a look at Leinster today and went onto Met Éireann website, and the UV index says it's moderate to high in the Leinster area today, which it wasn't a particularly warm day. It got warmer today, went on, there was clouds, but 90% of UV rays can pass through like clouds. So I suppose the first misconception is it's to do with how bright and sunny and hot it is. We know that UV radiation is hitting Ireland from about April to September. And it's something that we need to consider as every day as part of our routine, not just on sunny days. The second piece that you've talked about there, in and out of the tractor, well, glass UV rays can pass, particularly UVA can pass through glass. Laminated glass in our windscreens often, it can't get through there, but what about our side panels and, windows down? So, we need to kind of think of it as it is there just because we're in a vehicle doesn't mean we're getting protection. So the steps are quite simple, really. There's the 5 S's, the Sun Smart 5 S's, and this is kind of known in Australia as well. But the first one is to slip on clothing that covers your skin. Prevention is better than cure, so prevent getting burnt, prevent the UV rays. So slip on clothing, slap on sunscreen on exposed areas, so the neck, the ears, the face, and slap on a wide brim hat. We have a tendency to wear the peaked baseball hats, and they offer protection, I suppose, to the top of our head, to our face, but our ears and neck, and particularly outdoor workers, are very exposed around ears and neck. So if you can, try wear a wide brim hat. If you're going to stay wearing the peaked hat, we'd say you need to reapply sunscreen on those exposed areas, particularly head or neck and ears, several times throughout the day. Take shade where you can. Don't put yourself out in the searing midday sun or heat, when it's at that peak time. Seek shade and try and arrange your work throughout the day where you're outdoors more in the mornings, because we do know that those UV radiation is highest between 11 and 3 in the day. And then I suppose slide on sunglasses, protect your eyes, wrap around sunglasses are best. Our eyes and our eyelids get skin damage as well, and you can't put sunscreen in those areas. So there's some of the basic rules. And I think then I suppose it's to become more familiar with your skin. It's never too late to start protecting your skin. Even over a lifetime of exposure to UV rays from the sun, it's never the wrong time to start protecting yourself. You can still protect from now on. And know your skin. Start looking if you notice any little spots, any little crustaceans on the skin. Where farmers are probably most likely to see those, the top of the head again, the face, the side of the face, the neck, the ears, but they can be anywhere on hands, arms. Just know what's normal. Recognise where there's moles or where there's little patches. Get a partner or someone else to check your back. Use a mirror. And just know what's normal for you. And if you notice anything then that does change, that it's not healing up, the scaly pins, the skin, get your doctor just to have a look and check it out. Again, these things are very easy to treat in the early stages, and often a doctor will treat some of the early, at an early stage they can treat with medications, or they can refer you on to the local dermatology unit. But it's just really important to get in there early, get changes that you notice in your skin, get them checked out. They may not be any type of skin cancer, maybe something else, but we always say get checked out. Early intervention is always best.
Absolutely, Anne-Marie, good advice there, and those pamphlets will be given to farmers as part of their quality assurance over the summer months. We'll say many thanks to you for joining us this evening, Anne-Marie, and we'll talk to you again in the programme.
Thank you, MJ.
Anne-Marie Lawler there is a health promotion officer with the HSE, and those 5 S's, I take my time with these now: slip, slop, slap, shade and slide. I can't remember exactly what to do with them all, but I suppose, look, the big one is to use common sense. If it's a very hot day, not to be out in searing heat for hours on end. Stay hydrated as well and stay out of the searing heat. And then I suppose, look, your body as well. Some people are better equipped to take the sun than others. If you're maybe lighter, fair, ginger, you might find it very, very, very challenging to be out for a period of time at all. So it's all about knowing yourself, knowing your body, using some common sense and just being cognizant of it. And I suppose when you get that leaflet, maybe have a look at it instead of popping it into the bin, which is what we all have a tendency to do at times. And now, just before I go to the break, I have to mention, obviously, this week I have to say a big congratulations to our listeners in Westmeath and indeed the Westmeath footballers. What a result on Sunday last, wasn't it? Just amazing. Incredible achievements, and the scenes on Sunday evening in Mullingar were fantastic, and really, really credit to the team and credit to everybody involved. But great to see a Midland team doing well. Obviously, Offaly going well into hurling as well. Very happy with our performance over the last couple of weeks. A great win against Wexford. We've Kildare coming up this weekend, and we're looking for Dublin to do us a favour against Kilkenny. And if they do us a favour, possibly a place in the last 8 beckons. So fingers crossed for this coming weekend. Speaking of Kildare, I have a picture of Martin Hayden in front of me here. He had an article in the Farming Indo yesterday, a 2-page spread, and I thought it was an interesting one. There was just a couple of parts on it I said I would bring to your attention, and it is really all about negotiation for CAP. Now, this is what we're going to be hearing about for the next good year, I suppose, while these negotiations are taking place. And he is speaking about, firstly, active farmer. We've seen talk about this. The ICMSA mentioned that you should have 1 livestock unit per hectare to be an active farmer. That's about a cow. Which is quite a bit. Then the other farming bodies, one of the Irish Natura, the Hill organisation, said that was far too much. So there's discourse on that. There's also the area of what will occur with entitlements. Will there be entitlements in 2028? And the Minister says here he's going to fight his level best to ensure that there are. And another aspect then is in the continent, you can't get entitlements and the old age pension at the same time. And obviously our demographic of farmers is 58, so lots of farmers are in receipt of both. Minister Hayden says he's going to continue the fight to ensure that you can receive both. So it's going to be interesting times, and our EU presidency is coming at a good time. We're going to be in the seat for that during the negotiation. So obviously we're going to keep a close eye on it here on the programme, but that's what the news airways in agriculture are going to be dedicated to over the months and the weeks ahead, CAP negotiations and what will occur from 2028 onwards. So as soon as we have any news on it, we'll keep you in the loop. Now, coming up after the break, Pat O'Brien from the ICMSA is joining us, Tullamore man. He's going to talk about the Fertiliser Action Plan. Now, this is kind of more about next year. It's potential payments in relation to purchasing fertiliser for next year. At the moment, fertiliser supply is not bad, but they feel the issue out in the Middle East is going to lead to a problem next year. And also cash flow on your farm. As we know, price has gone through the roof. So if you're having a cash flow issue, what should you do? Pat's going to have information for us after the break.
Country Life on Midlands 103.
With W.R. Shaw. Looking for the best in farm machinery? We've been supplying top quality New Holland tractors and parts and providing service since 1982. Our expert team is here to keep your farm running smoothly. With branches in Tullamore and Carlow. Visit wrshaw.ie today.
And you're welcome back to Country Life here in Midlands 103. Pat O'Brien from the ICMSA joins us now. Pat, many thanks for taking my call this evening.
Thank you for having me, MJ.
You're more than welcome, Pat. We're going to chat about cash flow in a moment. I prefer not to be talking about cash flow no more than you would. We'd like if we were talking about a cash surplus, but that's for a minute's time. Fertiliser, I mentioned this at the start, Pat. Fertiliser Action Plan. So the issues are more for 2027 than 2026, but potential income relief in relation to purchasing fertiliser, but I don't believe it's going to be a big figure.
They're talking about 400 million for all the farmers in Europe. If you divide that between the farmers that are drawn down cap, it works out at €67 a head, so that won't buy much.
Well, yeah, we might buy one bag of 18,612 for that, maybe one of the small bags. Obviously, look, a paltry amount, Pat, but I suppose more the issue is supply, I suppose, for 2027. We're hearing at the moment that, it could be a big issue for the start of, say, spring of 27, and that's the real issue, I suppose.
Look, the man across the Atlantic is having a big effect on everything, and a lot will depend on what he decides to do. And nobody can tell from one minute to the next what he's going to do. So, look, all we can do is prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and try and have fertiliser in stock while it's still available.
Yes, no,
good. Be prepared for next year.
Good advice, Pat. And onto that advice, and again, it's as a result of the Middle East conflict at the moment. We're talking about cash flow. Look, it's a tough year. There's no point saying any different, Pat. Beef prices are not where we want them to be at. Milk prices are not where dairy farmers want them to be at. Tillage prices are poor. The only real shining light at the moment is lamb price, and then we're looking at fertiliser. We're looking at diesel costs, contractor costs, looking at everything going the opposite direction. So cash flow it's a real issue now on farms, and
it is.
Now is the time it's biting, I would say.
Yeah, it's starting to look. We met with the three banks the week before last, and look, they're saying while there's still some fat in the system, the pressure, they can see the pressure developing, and they're advising farmers to be proactive rather than reactive. There's not much point in going in to engage with your bank if you've missed the payment. So what they're saying is to go and have funds organised so that, like, if you're using your repayment capacity as working capital, you're going to get caught out. So if you've done development on your farm, or if you've bought a machine in the last 3 years, they can recapitalise that machine for you. If you've done that out of cash flow.
Yeah,
They
I
can
think
recapitalise
that's
that asset for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good play, Pat. To be honest, it's something I haven't seen before, put as simply as that. But I have it here in front of me. This is your own press release here. A farmer who built a shed 2 years ago using their own money, which they may well have done back in the better times, may now be able to draw down finance against that investment for working capital. That's solid advice.
It is, and look, it's timely advice as well. And look, under the new central bank rules, if you default, there's very little the bank can do for you. So if you're proactive, if it turns out you don't need the money, you don't have to draw it down. But have the blocks put in place and have it there and ready. And if you need it, you have it, because farmers going to have tax bills in the back end as a result of last year, and the money is well gone, well spent between the price of inputs this year and it's just not going to be there. So the best advice is to prepare well ahead.
Yeah, other advice you have here as well, and again, good salient advice, is in relation to your credit rating. So look, at the moment, or towards the back end of the year, people may be just conscious about making payments and whatnot, and they mightn't be thinking really about how it could affect them long term if they missed one. But even missing one payment can go against you, and then you might be looking for financing in 2 or 3 years' time again. So you have to be very conscious of the long game in relation to credit also.
That's the thing. And look, under the new central bank rules, farmers or any borrower was going to get caught out that way. And what the bank is advising, explore every avenue. Go in and talk to them, or ring them and talk to them, which is more the case nowadays. But they will know what products they have, or if they have something that'll suit your particular situation. And if all fruit fails, that they have to put you on an interest-only payment for 6 months or whatever, while that will work against you as regards the central bank rules. When you re-engage with your bank again, if you want to borrow down the road, they will have an understanding of what sort of year 2026 was. And look, he came in and he spoke to us, or she came in and they spoke to us, and we worked it out. And they've said to us, we won't hold that against them. Do you know, so it's not as draconian as it could be, but in any case, whatever the situation is, be proactive rather than reactive.
Yeah, take action. Pat, good advice. I'm going to say many thanks for joining me here on the programme. We'll speak to you again on Country Life. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, MJ. Could I just mention, we have a webinar, an online webinar tomorrow night at 8:30 with OHK Solar. And we have a representative from the SEAI contributing as well. And anyone that wants to join it, if they email their name and their email address to meetings@icmsa.ie, they'll get an invitation to join. The TAMS grants is so restricted as regards solar now that OHK, who are operating in conjunction with ICMSA, are advising farmers to go for the SEAI grant, because too many farmers are being turned down for the TAMS grant, and it is they have to apply to the ESB for a license to supply electricity to the grid, which is costing almost over 900 euros, almost 1,000 euros. That's non-refundable. So if they're turned down for the TAMS grant, they're out of pocket by that, and they still can't get their solar.
So you have the details tomorrow night, Pat. Meetings at icmsa.ie. Many thanks, Pat.
Thank you, MJ.
Pat O'Brien there from the ICMSA. And what I would add to the action to take in relation to your cash flow is, it is now May 2026. It's May, so don't leave your accounts to the back end of the year this year. I often say it to you, and believe it or not, I've actually taken action myself, and I've started to get them together with a view to getting them in now, as opposed to getting them in next mid-October and waiting for the bad news and then trying to gather a tax bill together in a matter of days. So this is the year where cash flow is tight, to take action early, and then at least you'll have 5 or 6 months. If you do have a tax bill, you'll have 5 or 6 months to be able to plan around it. So I think that's something we all need to do this year in farming and self-employment in general. That's it for this evening's programme. I would like to thank everyone who joined me here over the hour. Martin Merrick from the Irish Farmers Journal, Ewan Mullins from Teagasc, we had Anne-Marie Lawler from the HSE, and Pat O'Brien there from the ICMSA. Show is repeated on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. through to 8 a.m. I'll be back with you next Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. as always. You can get us wherever you get your podcasts. If you type in MJ space Clery, Clery, we will pop up. You can listen at your leisure. Hopefully this time next week we'll be talking about the great growth we've had for the last few days and the lovely heat, and that will be the topic of conversation in 7 days' time. Good evening.